Hello Year 7, welcome to Lesson 5. I hope you enjoyed reading Chapter 2 last lesson, and we're just going to look at some more details in that chapter today. So, reminder, working in a quiet place, make sure you've got your exercise book ready, pencil case, make sure you've checked Teams, make sure you've uploaded last week's work. Have you given your work to your teacher? Make sure we can see it. Okay, make sure you're in the right frame of mind and we are ready to work. 3, 2, 1, let's go. Okay, Year 7, here's your title, Foreshadowing in Chapter 2. It's a long word, be careful that you spell it right with an E after the R. Underline it carefully and write today's date. So what's foreshadowing? You may be wondering. Well, I'm going to pick up a couple of pictures first of all to see if it makes you think about what it is. So there you go. The first one, if you're a Star Wars fan, you may recognise somebody in that picture. And the second picture is nobody famous, just found it on Google. It's a girl with a certain look on her face and a sign that says danger, do not climb. So can we guess what those pictures might tell us about foreshadowing? First of all, this character and this character, do you think they might be linked in a film? Yes, Darth Vader. Okay. Who is he? I am your father. That's the best impression I can do. I'm very, very sorry. Okay. Luke Skywalker, Darth Vader. Turns out later on in the film he's his father and he doesn't know it. Okay. This girl here and this sign. What do you think happens? Do you think she climbs it? I think she does. So can we figure out then what foreshadowing is? It's a trick used by writers to give a hint of what is to come later in the story. It often appears at the beginning of a story or a chapter, and it helps the reader develop expectations about the upcoming events. Okay, I want you to write down at least the first sentence. If you want to, you can write down the second sentence, okay? But I want you to write down at least this first sentence about what foreshadowing means. So pause the video to give yourself enough time to do that, Year 7. Just to help you a little bit more with what foreshadowing is. Here on the screen you can see the opening to the Little Red Riding Hood, a story that I'm sure you're all familiar with. And what we can see is that the foreshadowing is being used to give hints to the reader about what might happen in the future. So let's just look at the opening here of the story. Once upon a time there was a little girl who lived with her mother. Her mother asked her to take her old and lonely grandmother some food one day. Don't stop along the way. Go straight to your grandma's house and back. Don't talk to any strangers and watch out for the wolf in the woods. Now get along. And you can see there that the wolf bit in the woods has been underlined and labelled as foreshadowing, because it's giving us a hint that of course she's going to talk to a stranger, she's going to go through the woods and she's going to meet a wolf. Okay, so how does a writer create foreshadowing? Sometimes they will repeat information to us. Sometimes they will introduce a strange object. Sometimes they will withhold and keep back information from us and not tell us certain things. And sometimes they will use the weather. We've already had that, haven't we? And this creates tension. So what I'd like you to do, Year 7, is before we move on, I would like you to write down this list in the yellow box in your exercise book, because you're going to need it for the next exercise we do. So pause the video and write down the question, how does a writer do this, and the 5 bullet points in the yellow box. Okay, so we're going to answer this question. How does Neil Gaiman, the writer, foreshadow events to interest the audience, the reader? Okay, so we have on the screen, first of all, on this side of the screen here, we have the extract that we've already read from chapter 2. Okay, and here on this side of the screen I've just pulled out some little extracts. What I would like you to do is I would like you to decide from the list that you have just written down in your book which of these Neil Gaiman is using. Okay, so how is he foreshadowing events? Okay, so you can see I've pulled these out of here. So I'd like you to look in particular at these bits here in the green box, and I'd like you to look at these. We've got, Caroline, she said after a while, you are in terrible danger. Oh dear, she said, you were right, April, she is in danger. Is this repeats information? Is it introduces a strange object? Is it withholds information? Is it using the weather? Is it creating tension? And I would like you to write down whichever one of these you think it is. And I would like you to just write down which bit of this matches to it. So a little quotation. Remember, when we write quotations, we use our little hooks. Okay, because we're picking it up with some little hooks and we're taking it out of the text and putting it into our writing. Okay, pause the video if you need a little bit longer to do that. Okay, so what we have now is we have another page from chapter 2, and we have on the screen at this side 2 other bits that I have pulled out of this page. Okay, you will recognise some bits of it, particularly this one from last lesson, okay, or a lesson before even. Right, so a little reminder, they are your 5 ways a writer creates foreshadowing. So have a look at these sections at the top. Let's have a look at the little extract. She passed Coraline the stone with a hole in it. What's it for? Asked Coraline. The hole went all the way through the middle of the stone. She held it up to the window and looked through it. It might help, said Miss Spink. They're good for bad things sometimes. The mist hung like blindness around the house. Okay, you might get 2 different things there. How is the writer foreshadowing events to interest the reader? Which one of the 5 lists on the 5 lists is the writer using? Okay, write down the ones from the bullet points that you can find, so you should be able to get 2 from here, and I want you to see if you can write down your quotation from each one, remembering to try and use your little quotation marks. Okay, pause the video if you need a little bit longer to do that. Okay, year 7, so we're going to look at some of those extracts and we're just going to see how do they interest the reader. Okay, so let's have a look at this one. The stone with the hole in it. Which one was it? It was the strange object. Okay, now you can write some of these ideas down if you like, but you don't have to, because we're going to do a little bit of writing after this scene, after this screen. Okay, so you can just listen and you can just make sure that you understand this information. So let's have a look what we've got written here. It's the strange object. and it's used to foreshadow events because it tells us that at some point in the novel, Coraline is not going to be able to survive without it. It's a very special object that she's being given to her by Miss Spink and Miss Forcible. It adds a magical feeling to the story, so therefore we're more interested in it. Okay, it makes us think that that stone with a hole in the middle has got something very special about it. Okay, so without it, Coraline's going to lack some special powers. Okay, and then we have the first section here. You know, Coraline, she said after a while, you are in terrible danger. Now, did you spot this one? She just says you're in terrible danger. She didn't tell her anything else, did she? Withholds information. And we're left wondering what it is Coraline needs to be careful of. We want to find out, don't we? We're engaged. We're desperate to know what it is that Coraline needs to be careful of. Okay, and then we have, oh dear, she said, you were right, April, she is in danger. I'm sure you spotted the repetition. By repeating the information to the reader, they're left thinking that Coraline's life could be at risk. And not knowing when this will appear, it leaves us on a tense note because it's at the end of the chapter. It's a proper cliffhanger, isn't it? So then we have that nice simile that we looked at, that the mist hung like blindness around the house. Okay, so the author is using weather to foreshadow that the bad events will happen in the story. The mist suggests to the reader that Coraline is in danger. If it was all sunny, then, you know, we're thinking, oh, nice things are going to be happen. But it's not. It's misty. So again, the weather adds a foreshadowing element to the story. Okay, now if you want to pause the video and jot any of those ideas down, you can do, but it's not absolutely necessary. Okay. Right, what I'd like you to do now is I'd like you to write that question down that we've been talking about. How does Neil Gaiman foreshadow events to interest the reader? So pause the video if you need a moment to write the question down. Okay, so what I'm bringing up on the screen are some sentence starts for you. You don't have to use these. You can use something that's similar to it that you've used before. But what we have is, in chapter 2, Neil Gaiman foreshadows events later in the novel by telling us that. What sort of things does he tell us? What sort of techniques does he use? Withholding information, introducing a strange object, repeating things, using the weather. And what does it suggest at? Okay, I've used those words that we've looked at before. Perhaps, maybe, and I've put this bit in italics because these are stretching you. Okay, so have a go at using those, but you don't have to use those if you don't want to. Okay, and then I've given you a choice here of some sentences that you can use to develop your paragraph. How does it make the reader feel? It creates tension for the reader because, and it further interests the reader by suggesting what? And then we've got at the side some key vocabulary that I want you to try and use in your writing. So we've got foreshadow or foreshadowing. You can use either of those. We've got the reader, withholding information, danger, tension, weather, negative events. See if you can use that. Okay, so I want you to write at least one paragraph, and I want you to try and use those sentence starts, and I want you to try and use that key vocabulary. So you will need to pause the video at this point to complete that work, and you can just press play when you are ready to carry on. Okay, so how did you do? Let's have a look at a sample answer and let's see what is in this sample answer that makes it a good answer. So in chapter 2, Neil Gaiman foreshadows events later in the novel by telling us that Coraline is in danger when the sisters read the tea leaves. He does this by withholding information and not actually telling the reader what the danger is, but he does repeat that she is in danger twice. Maybe this could suggest that her life is at risk and the stone is an object Coraline needs to escape this danger, adding a magical element to the novel. This creates tension for the reader and they feel scared for the main character. In addition, to further interest the reader, the author mentions the day is misty, suggesting that bad events might follow. Okay, so we can look at what's being written here. We've got withholding information. Okay, we've got the object of the stone, and we've got tension. We've got our maybe. Okay, we've got our quotation. Okay, so have a look at yours and see if you can include any of those words, and then have a look for your ideas. What have you said? How does it make, what is it foreshadowing? Okay, so what have we said? It could suggest that her life is at risk, that she needs to escape danger. We've said we feel scared for the main character. Absolutely. Was that girl going to climb over the fence? Of course she was. Is Caroline going to do something with that door in the mist? Probably. Okay, and it suggests that bad events might follow. So just check your answer and compare it with my answer. You could either give yourself a target for next time. What do you need to do? Do you need to use some more key vocabulary? Do you need to use a connective? Do you need to develop your answer a little bit more? Okay, well done Year 7. Foreshadowing is not easy, so well done for concentrating and working hard. Have a look then at the bullet point list and just check, have you used any of these things? That's just a little recap of what it is that a writer does to create tension, and we're going to look for those later on in the story as well, because it gets more tense as we go along. It doesn't stop there. I know. Well done. Some hard work there. Make sure you've checked your work. Make sure you've checked Teams to see when your teacher wants it uploaded. Make sure you've done your best, and look forward to seeing you next lesson, Year 7. Over and out.